in the panelists to join, and then we can get every other person started as well. So Investment One Financial Services was incorporated in 2008 as a GT Asset Management Company, and it's a wholly owned asset management. It was a wholly owned asset management subsidiary of Guarantee Trust Bank at that time. But in 2011, following new regulatory requirements, CBN asked that the company at that time should divest. And so, Investment One Financial Services came to birth at that particular time. And today, it's a leading player in financial services industry. It has distinctive offerings in wealth management and trust, mutual funds, pensions, real estate, private equity, venture capital, investment banking, and securities brokerage. Really, it prides itself as being a one-stop shop for all of its financial services needs of any customer. And in this webinar, we would also see that. We'll see how they will discuss how we are a one-stop shop for all the financial needs that you have. We have a decade of asset management expertise, a reputable track record, as well as experienced and committed professionals. We have just this one singular goal in mind: to preserve and grow your capital, preservation and growth of capital. That's what we have in mind. And that's Investment One. So today's webinar, let's dive directly down into it. My name is Tilewa Olorunishola. I work with Investment One, and I have worked in the past 10 years in the technology field, both in consulting and financial services sector. My experience covers Microsoft infrastructure, project management, core infrastructure, service management, information security, and governance. This is just a few of the experiences that I've gained in the past 10 years. And I will be the host and moderator of today's webinar. And just alongside myself, I've got two seasoned professionals that, will I also be able to say, industry veterans. They have equally impressive experience in technology and information security, and I will be introducing them to you later on, and they will be discussing today's topic. So let's come to today's topic. Webinar, we picked a very interesting topic to be discussed today, and that is building cybersecurity resilience into your business. Now, looking at that topic, we have two keywords that just jumps at you really. That's resilience and cybersecurity. What do we mean when we say the word resilience? Let me just paint a quick picture. So let's look at COVID-19, and this is a pandemic, and everyone has felt its effects in every aspect of our life globally as well, not just in Nigeria. And there've been, there's quite a, when you put this side by side with the resulting effects of COVID-19, you would see that business operations have had three distinctive effects. So some businesses have collapsed, some have been able to survive, and while others have been able to thrive. So you see these businesses that survive and thrive, that is what you term as resilience. They have withstood the pandemic, they've recovered from it, and in spite of it, they've been able to survive and thrive. So that's what we want to share with you, how your business can be resilient, not just to any type of risk, but to cybersecurity risk. Cybersecurity is one term that everyone is discussing the world over, and that's because it's capable of wreaking havoc to businesses and is very, very costly to recover from. I came across a particular report from a 2019 report by an IT consulting firm, Serrano, and that report shows that Nigeria lost $649 million to cybersecurity issues in 2019. And that is a lot of money. And imagine that coming from anyone's business. It means that cybersecurity losses can, and they do actually, wipe out the working capital of many businesses, many SMEs, and they also create a significant dent into the working capital of large corporations. So that's why we would like to discuss this topic with you today. And just to give you a brief layout of the webinar, we will be focusing on two major areas. So how can you build resilience in your business? through the help of security procedures as well as security tools. That's how we're going to focus on. Those are the areas we're going to focus for today's webinar. And that would see how those things, the security processes and the tools, can help to strengthen your business, help your business to be able to withstand and recover from cybersecurity risks. So that's what we would like you to take away from today's session. How can you help your business, build into your business resilience to withstand cybersecurity risk and issues and recover from, to be able to survive and thrive in spite of a cybersecurity issue. So I've got two great people, like I mentioned, seasoned professionals. And the first person that would be coming to give his presentation and who is also part of the panelist is Opeyemi Onifade. Now, Opeyemi Onifade is, he has an extensive experience and very, I'm reading through his profile, and he has CISA, CISM, CISSP, CJIT, BRMP, CCSP, CRISC, and PCI QSA. So you can imagine his vast range of knowledge that he's going to be sharing at today's webinar. He founded Afenoid Enterprise Limited in 2011 to provide governance, risk, compliance, management consultancy, and capacity building for enterprises in Africa. He also founded the Center for Cyber Resilience and Digital Economy in 2016 in order to position organizations and professionals to capitalize on opportunities of the digital age. So prior to becoming an entrepreneur, Opeyemi was CISO at Galaxy Backbone PLC Nigeria and Country Information Security Officer at EcoBank Transnational Incorporation, where he helped to translate security controls to business enablers, leading to development of mobile banking application and credit card program in local currency. He has also served as chapter president of ISECA for 2 years. He's currently an academic member of Business Relationship Management Institute, USA. In addition to leading Afenoid, a payment card industry qualified security assessment company, he serves as a trusted advisor to regulators in financial industries, fintech, top-tier banks, and national oil companies in their digital transformation and IT business convergence journey, leading to digital value creation and value preservation. He volunteers at cybersecurity, governance, and risk management conferences, and contributes to ISECA's body of knowledge, including CISA and season review manuals as COVID. And I personally know him, and is really interesting, and I look forward to his presentation. So let me hand over to Opeyemi, who will take us through the next 20 minutes on building resilience into your business using security processes.
Thank you very much for having me. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay. It's my pleasure to be here this afternoon to share with the customers and clients of Investment One and prospective clients of Investment One Financial Services on building cybersecurity resilience into your business. I like the definition that Lewa shared. Resilience is very important. It's not just enough for us to survive in times like this. It's important that we are able to thrive. And thriving means that we're able to recover from failure quickly, and that's what resilience is all about. And because we cannot succeed by accident, we have to plan for resilience. Resilience is not something that happens by accident. It's possible to fail by accident, but it's not possible to succeed by accident. So so that I can put what we are talking about in context, I'll talk about fundamentals of information security or cybersecurity, if we may. Cybersecurity is basically about ensuring that your information is secured in the cyberspace. So we talk about cybersecurity and all of that. This is, there are technical differentiation between information security and cybersecurity, but for the purpose of our conversation, I'm going to be using them interchangeably. For information security is all about preservation of what we call CIA, C for confidentiality, I for integrity, and A for availability. Confidentiality is about ensuring that information is accessible only to those who are authorized to have access. And integrity is about safeguarding the accuracy and completeness of information and processing methods. Availability is ensuring that authorized users have access to information and associated assets when and how required. So basically, that is what we mean by the fundamental principles of information security. Today, I will be just to be able to optimize the time that have been allotted to me. I just want to leave some food for thought for you with respect to cybersecurity. The first thing I would like to say, which I've said earlier, is that you can fail by accident, or you cannot succeed by accident. Okay. So in the digital age, talking about the opportunities of the times, you have to be intentional about preserving the value you are creating. And cybersecurity is all about that. It's about value preservation, of the digital opportunities that are available to us. And then the second thought I would like you to consider is that you cannot protect what you can't identify. So when we talk about cybersecurity, we are talking about securing information assets that are of value to you. And it's important that you are able to identify those assets so that you can adequately protect them. The third food for thought is that a big problem is a small problem that management ignored earlier. Okay, so a lot of cybersecurity issues as a result of management negligence or lack of understanding or abdication of their duties and responsibilities when it comes to cybersecurity governance and general risk management governance. So a big problem is a small problem that management ignored earlier. So if you don't like risk management, you are going to have to like crisis management. So how do we ensure that when we expect the best, we have to prepare for the worst? Okay, that is what resilience is all about. And then the fourth thought I would like you to consider is that what you can't control, you can't manage. So when we talk about cybersecurity, we're actually talking about having the right risk management practices and principles in place. And you need to be able to put in place the right controls. Some controls are preventive, some are detective, some are corrective. Some controls are proactive, some are reactive. And it's important for you to understand the necessary controls that are able to help your organization to become resilient, to be strong, because the less vulnerable you are as an organization, okay, the more mature you become. The more mature you become, the more resilient you become. And lastly, I also want to put these thoughts forward that information security is not a project. Sometimes you buy a tool, you implement something, and say you are secure. Information security is a process. It is not a destination. It is a journey. You will never be at a point in the organizational life where you say you're 100% secure or there is no risk exposure. Otherwise, you have no business. So the whole idea of information security management is ensuring that the practices or the exposure of the business to the cyber security issues are within the risk appetite of the business. Risk appetite meaning how much risk you are willing to take in pursuit of your business objectives. So what you can't identify, you can't protect, meaning that you need to identify information assets of the organization. So when we talk about information assets, we refer to assets that are of value, anything of value to the organization, okay, which comes in the form of information. Today, information is a critical factor of production for every organization, okay? And then when we talk about IT, you know that information is the reason why the technology exists in the first instance. So we need to classify this information. Not all information are all of equal importance. It's like the animal farm. All animals are equal, but some are more equal than the others. Some information are more valuable than the others. So you need to be able to identify the value of the information in terms of their criticality to your business and the sensitivity of the information. So you have information assets, you need to be able to identify where they are. So when we talk about cybersecurity, of course, we are looking at information security in the cyberspace. But information security is broader than even cybersecurity. You need to look at information that are on paper, information that are with your personnel, the physical technology hardware, with your service provider or third-party providers, information with your software application, information that are generated by your services. So it is important that you understand these categories of information assets, and then you can now begin to put adequate protection around them. I said earlier that a big problem is a small problem that management ignored earlier. Meaning that if you don't have a risk-based approach to cybersecurity, so cybersecurity needs to be incorporated into your enterprise risk management approach. I know that most organizations definitely will have an enterprise risk management practice, within the organization, looking at issues around financial risk, credit risk, market risk, project risk, and all of that. But most organizations don't think that cyber security risk and IRT risk are important enough. They leave this with the people managing the cyber law. But it's time for cyber security to leave the cyber law, to take a place in the boardroom. So you need to determine the risk to your information assets and determine the impact of those risk scenarios. So there are a number of risks that the organization may be focused on. I think there are some questions and answers. Let me check to be sure that they are not directed at me at this time. Okay, so 1 second. Okay, all right. So a big problem is a small problem that management ignored earlier. So management needs to be part of they need to take interest as part of their responsibilities and duties to managing the health of the organization. Cybersecurity must be a major consideration that they have. So you need to be able to determine the risk of your information assets. What are the information assets? What risks are they exposed to? What will be the impact of these risk scenarios and the likelihood of the risk scenarios, so that you can determine whether the risks are within acceptable thresholds or not. So what are the threats that can lead to risk scenarios? Higher user knowledge of IT systems. You may have personnel that are able to bypass your security controls. Theft or sabotage or misuse. Many organizations allow work from home these days. So how do you ensure that the devices are protected? Or you're talking about NSAS. If somebody hijacks the laptops, in the name of security services, what happens to the information that are confidential to the organization on the laptop, for example, or the mobile devices? Virus attacks, this is very common, and that is why you need to be able to immunize, your system. So there are vaccines, just like we are looking for COVID-19 vaccines. Okay, the same way there are vaccines for viruses that may want to attack your information processing facilities. Systems and network failures, lack of documentation, lapse in physical security, natural calamities of fire. These are threats to the preservation of information assets in the organization. There are also vulnerabilities. If you look at this diagram, it looks like this has nothing to do with cybersecurity, but a lot of information security lapses can be found in this diagram. So you can see that papers are lying all around. The laptop or the desktop is not locked. The window is doesn't have a burglary proof. Anybody can just get in and take away a flash drive or something like that. You forget what you have printed in the printer. You have your lockers, with the keys there and all of that. So you have cables dangling all over the place. You have files, with clear description of what they are all about. So these are some of the vulnerabilities that can be exploited by threats, and then would possibly create some cybersecurity scenarios for the organization. For example, look at number 19. Instead of a shredder, what you have there is just a bin, which means that sensitive information could actually be reconstructed, by dumpster divers, those who are looking around your dustbins to maybe for data leakage purposes to see what data they can find their hands on. So what you can't control, you can't manage. So when you talk about controls in cybersecurity or risk management generally, the purpose of controls are to modify risk. Controls help you to modify risk to ensure that the risks are within the threshold that is acceptable to the organization. So you need to define information security risk to be managed. If you are going to build resilience into your business, you need to determine the controls that are necessary to modify the cybersecurity risk exposure to alignment with the enterprise risk appetite. So that means that the enterprise risk appetite must have been defined, and now you need to be able to align the cybersecurity risk profile of the organization with the appetite of the enterprise that has been defined. Then you need to maintain a risk treatment plan. A risk treatment plan is a plan of how you want to implement controls into the organization, like a project plan that tells which controls you want to put in place to ensure that risk exposures are modified to acceptable levels. So there's a standard around information security and cybersecurity. One is called ISO 27001, which is the parent standard for information security, which talks about management controls that you need to put in place across 14 domains. It's like security policy management, corporate security management, personnel security management, organizational asset management, information access management, cryptography policy, physical security, operational security, network security, system security, supplier relationship management, security incident management, security continuity management, and security compliance management. And if you look at these 14 domains, it actually breaks down to 114 controls. It cascades to 114 controls and processes which you need to put in place for you to have a complete information security management system that addresses the risk exposure of the organization. So there's another standard called ISO 27032, which now helps to specialize around cybersecurity, but it's important that you have the fundamentals of information security in place because you can't build something or nothing. So these are some of the domains that you may want to, after this session, look into a standard like this. Investment One is an ISO 27001 certified organization, and we are proud to be a partner with them in that journey. You can fail by accident, but you can't succeed by accident. You need to be able to define information security policies that are up to date, and those policies should not just be documentations that nobody looks into. You need to be able to ensure that they are in use and they are communicated to all stakeholders. So if I come to your organization and I ask about the information security policy, will I get the same response as I will get when I ask about the HR policy of your organization? So I know your organization, if I come to your organization and I ask anyone about the dress code of your organization, probably I'm going to get consistent answers. What if I ask about the password policy of your organization? What if I ask about the acceptable use policy for your organization? What if I ask about antivirus policy? Do people understand, the concept of, I put here vaccination because of COVID. Everybody seems to, be aware of vaccination and all of that. So it's like when you apply antiviruses into your system, it's like vaccinating the system against infection. So do you know about personal firewall? I check the system, your desktop, your laptop, is a personal firewall on or is it off? Can somebody disable the personal firewall on their systems without while they're able to bypass administrative controls? Do people actually have password on their systems and all of that? So implement information security and privacy training and awareness programs because your business is made of people. Your business is as resilient as your people. Your business is as good as your people. So if your people are not risk aware, if they are not trained, they become the weakest link in your cybersecurity chain. Okay, and your cybersecurity chain, it will be as strong as the weakest link. So you need to implement information security and privacy training and awareness programs. Continual improvement is the key. If you are not intentionally improving, you are unintentionally declining. So like I mentioned earlier, information security is not a project. Resilience is a continual improvement task. You know, the day you arrive, that is the day you start declining. If you stop climbing the hill, you start sliding down. So you have to be intentional about your improvement. You just look for opportunities for improvement to mature the controls, to mature the system. Don't just say it as a project that have a beginning and an end. So information security is not like that. It's a process. It is not a destination. It is a journey of continual improvement. A company called Nothing is a cybersecurity company, a popular antivirus company, provides some guidance to promote cyber hygiene. And I'm just going to share a few of them with you so that you can adopt them for your continual improvement journey. So some cyber hygiene guidance, just some practical tips to take away, that you can immediately begin to apply in your organization. So antivirus software is a program or umbrella of programs that scans for and eradicates computer viruses and other malicious software or malware. Malware is about, that's what we call malicious software. Their aim is not to help your organizations to do what it wants to do, but actually to sabotage your system. So it's a vital component of your overall cyber hygiene. It is protection against security breaches along other threats. It helps in confirming the health of your computer and other devices. So when we talk about hygiene, you know that hygiene also helps, with containing the pandemic. So just like it is helpful, hygiene applies to biology. It also applies to technology. Okay, so and one thing we can do is to ensure that our antivirus is up to date and effective. Use network firewalls and personal firewalls. Using a network firewall is another key habit for maintaining good cyber hygiene. Firewalls are the first line of defense in network security by preventing unauthorized users from accessing your website, mail servers, and other sources of information that can be accessed from the web. So you need to be able to ensure that you have a demilitarized zone, and you have your firewall configured correctly so that unauthorized people will not, be able to access your servers or your information assets from the internet, okay, without authorization. Ensure that you update your software regularly. And I think that in our environment here, in our climate, organizations may have challenges with this for two reasons. One is that sometimes people don't use, licensed software. If you use a cracked software, then you won't get support from the software developers, which means that you are going to have loopholes in the software, whether you crack it on your phone or you crack it on your desktop or your laptop. There will be repercussions, there will be consequences for that issue, for what you've done, even though it may look like you are getting some immediate benefit, but in the long term, there will be consequences, which means that wherever there are loopholes, patches are released. The patches, they patch the security loopholes in systems. So you may not have access to that. That is the one reason why softwares are not updated regularly in this client. Another reason might be that bandwidth is very expensive, and sometimes people just want to turn off the updates because they don't want to consume too much bandwidth. So it is important that you look at the cost-benefit analysis of this. Data may be expensive, but how valuable is your information asset to you? So that is very important. Then set strong passwords. Strong passwords are passwords that are not easy to guess. Make sure that the password that you have for your devices are strong. I can imagine that there may be some people listening to me. Your debit card, your ATM card, the pin is 1234 or 1111. You just say, okay, which is just about mental laziness. You need to be more creative than that. Your password should be unique. Your password should not be ABCDEF or password 1 or something like that. It needs to contain at least 12 characters along with numbers, symbols, capital and lowercase letters. Changing your passwords regularly is like your toothbrush. After a while, your toothbrush, becomes ineffective. You can't use it forever. And I'm sure that there will be people listening to me that since they created their Yahoo account, they've never changed the password to that Yahoo email or your Gmail account, for the last 10 years. So if you are one of those, you want to quickly change your password after this session. Don't share your password just like you will not share your toothbrush. Don't reuse the same password, so that you can be prevented from hackers' activity. Then multi-factor authentication. This could be a bit technical, but it's a very important concept for you to know. If you're already a bank customer, you are doing internet banking, you probably know about multi-factor authentication. In fact, for you, those of us who have subscribed to WhatsApp, you know that multi-factor authentication is very important if you don't want your line to be hijacked and all of that. So you've seen a situation, you're in a group and somebody will hijack somebody else's line, and the reason is because they've not activated the two-factor authentication. So when we talk about authentication factors, it's really about three things fundamentally. It could be more. The first factor is about what you have, the second one is about what you know, and then the third factor is about who you are. So when we talk about who you are, we're talking about biometrics. What you have could be like you have a token in your hand, or you have an ID card. What you know could be a PIN number, personal identification number, could be a password, and all of that. So when you're able to combine these factors, it helps in protecting your authentication data. Okay, so that is very important. So if you have not activated two-factor authentication, even on your phone, sometimes on your email, you have a mobile phone with your office email on it. It's important that you are able to prevent unauthorized access to the emails, corporate emails on your phone, by activating two-factor authentication, which probably will require your fingerprint or a code that is known only to you. Okay, so the next one is about employing device encryption. If you encrypt your devices and other media that contain sensitive data, like laptops are easy to forget at the airport. They're easy to be lost. They're easy to be stolen. Tablets, smartphones, removable drives. I'm sure that most of us here may not be able to tell where the first flash drive that we used, where it is. So if we ask you the first flash drive that you used, or the one that you used 5 years ago, majority may not be able to say where they are. So the question is, what data has leaked because you have lost your removable drive, your flash drive, for example. So the memory stick, you may have all your sensitive data, your certificates, your marriage licenses, your investment certificates, and all of that. Your land, papers, and all of that scan into that. So what has happened to it? So you need to ensure that if you are going to use a memory stick that is able to get lost, you want to encrypt the memory stick, with strong cryptography. Then backup regularly. It's important that you have a backup plan. It is smart to keep your files secure by backing up important files offline. So have an extra storage, where you back up your files in case your laptop gets missing. Or in the cloud, there are a lot of cheap cloud options like Dropbox and so on that you can back up your information on, synchronize from your laptop or your mobile device, and then so that you can always have a backup. So that if you have any attack, such as, and this for the same thing applies to organizations, if you have attacks such as ransomware attack, where some attackers will encrypt your database and ask you to pay a ransom, which is like kidnapping your data. And then they say, okay, pay a ransom for us to release your data to you. If you don't pay a ransom, we're not going to release the data. We encrypt it with a key and we throw the key in. So depending on the value that the information is to you, organizations actually pay, to go to recover their data. But if you have a backup data, that is not corrupted, you may have, you can call their bluff, but you still have exposure to risk, to reputational risk, because they can actually, disclose the data. And if they are sensitive data, it becomes a problem at the corporate level. So keep your hard drive clean. We change our laptops. I can ask you, as your first laptop, probably you gave it away. You sold it to someone. What happened to the data within it? It's not enough to just say I've deleted it. I've emptied it from the recycle bin. You may not need to reformat it or wipe the hard drive clean. There are also tools to ensure that you degauss the hardware, to ensure that the data in it becomes forever irrecoverable. Or you may just want to remove the hard drive before you give away the device, the laptop or the desktop, and then just crush it and replace the hard drive before you securely dispose. Secure your router. This is a network device, that may be useful, may be used for your wireless network. A lot of organizations, because of the convenience, we use wireless network. You want to be sure that there's no rogue network around your organization. For example, if the name of your organization is Nigeria International, and then somebody comes and set up a wireless access point with that name, and all he's trying to do is to be a middleman in the middle to be able to monitor traffic and steal information. So you want to be sure that you have guidance or controls around wireless networks. People need to be aware of not just connecting to any free Wi-Fi that they have access to. If you're going to do that, probably you want to have a personal VPN on your devices to ensure that your information is protected. Okay, so in conclusion, I know there's a lot to learn, especially if you are new to this area of body of knowledge. But there are fundamental principles I want to conclude with. The first is that you connect management of cybersecurity to the business or mission objectives of the organization. Okay, if it's not important to the business, then you are not going to get the support that you need to invest in cybersecurity, because it's not just about adding cost, it's about adding value. And whatever add cost without adding value is a waste to the organization. So you want to connect management of cybersecurity risks to business or mission objectives. You want to align the management of cybersecurity risk with the enterprise risk management whenever possible, all right? Because it's just cybersecurity risk is business risk, okay? It's not a risk that stands alone. The only reason why your organization is exposed to cybersecurity risk is because you are in business. Then you need to balance the cost and benefits of managing cybersecurity risk. You don't want to spend 1 million naira to protect an asset that is not worth more than 10,000 naira. So you need to balance it. You don't want to spend $100 lock to protect a $10 bicycle. So there must be a balance between cost and benefits when you are managing cybersecurity risk. There are certain risks that you have to accept because the cost outweighs the benefits. The cost of mitigation or remediation or protection actually outweighs the benefits. You need to promote ethical and open communication of all cybersecurity risk. So when you are in trouble or when there are incidents, you don't want to just put it on that, sweep it under the carpet. You want to openly discuss it and find out what went wrong and what could we do to prevent a recurrence. So you want to be able to create an atmosphere where preventative controls can be proposed to prevent recurrence of incidents. And establish the tool at the top. Leadership is very important, to define and enforce personal accountability for operating within acceptable and well-defined cybersecurity tolerance levels. So leadership. You're a good leader if you show good example. You're a bad leader if you show bad example. So if as a leader, for example, you don't have a password, you don't care about locking your system when you are not at your desk, you leak information anyhow without control, then that is the same attitude that will be cultivated within your organization. And finally, the principle I want to leave with you is to use a consistent approach integrated into daily activities that is standard, repeatable, and aligned to business strategy. You want to do what Investment One has done by implementing a standard like ISO 27001, which ensures that information security best practices are integrated into your core business activities, and then there's daily monitoring of the performance of these controls. So that is the end of my presentation. But before I leave, this is something that you want to take back to your colleagues or to your management and a pledge. And I don't want you to see the pledge like national pledge of Nigeria that nobody, well, let me not say nobody, that few people actually keep to. This is a promise you want to keep, to stop and think before you connect to the internet, to take personal responsibility for security, follow your organizational security policies, and adhere to sound security practices, to lock your computer whenever you leave your work area, to safeguard portable computing equipment when you are in public places, to create and use strong passwords and never share your password with anyone, to never leave a written password near your computer or easily accessible. You go to some places and you just need to look around the desk. You find a sticky note with their passwords on it because they don't want to forget. So they write it on a post-it note and it's just around the corner. Promptly report all security incidents or concerns to your organization security officer or other appropriate contacts. There's a need to have a point of contact for security incident within the organization. Safeguard sensitive data as well as confidential or legally protected data from any inappropriate disclosure. Work to best of your ability to keep your organization staff, property, and information safe and secure, and spread the message to your friends, your co-workers, and community about staying safe online. Thank you very much. This is my contact details. You can connect on LinkedIn, you can send me a WhatsApp chat, or you can send me an email, and I'll be glad to respond to your questions on behalf of Investment One if you have any. Thank you very much for listening. Over to you, Tilewa.
Thank you so much, Okoyemi, for your presentation. And a number of things I was able to take away from that presentation was that, if you do fail by accident, but you don't succeed by accident, you actually have to plan these things. And, if you can't identify something, you really cannot protect it. And then you took us through the entire information security assessment, risk assessment of assessing your assets, vulnerabilities, threats, risk, and then the controls. And we really are grateful for the cyber security or cyber hygiene that you gave, and then the concluding slide of connect, align, balance, promote, establish, and use. So thank you so much for your presentation. And then we'll reach out to you in a few minutes after Kylie's presentation to take the questions, because we do see that there are some questions in the Q&A, and we encourage everyone to please put their questions there, and you'll be attending to those questions in just a short minute. So I'll use this now to move on to Kylie's presentation. Kylie Penn, Warden, served as the manager customer success for the Middle East and Africa region at Mimecast, and Mimecast itself is focused towards the SMB and mid-market segment, with an emphasis on ensuring Mimecast subscribers receive the maximum value out of their products and services. Now, Kylie has over 10 years experience in the ICT industry, ranging from technical support, project delivery, ITSM best practice, strategic account planning, security management, and has benefited widely from the exposure to both the customer, the partner, and vendor. So he has all of this experience and in addition to that, cloud utilization and industry movement towards software as a service and infrastructure as a service utilization and implementation. He's an advocate of multi-layered security approaches, and we'll be seeing that also in his presentation, with an emphasis on business resilience. So I call Kylie Penn, Warden from Mimecast to spend the next 15 minutes on his presentation. Thank you.
Thanks so much for the well-warm and welcoming introduction there, Taliwa. And just a thank you to everyone who's joined us this afternoon to get a better view of how you can prepare as well as plan ahead for possible interruption to business and disruption that may be caused by malicious actors or even internal staff members. I just want to say a big thank you to Mr. Anafadi. Incredible talk. I think I've got a much easier job than him today, considering I have a very focused view around the tools themselves, whereas he's having to go through absolutely every checklist necessary to have a comprehensive cyber resilience strategy. I'm just going to share my screen quickly so you guys can get a view. So what you will see in front of you is really just the starting point. And at Mimecast, we are currently utilizing version 3, or as you can see from up there, our email security 3.0 model. Nearly all cyber attacks at present leverage email. That's because email is always on. It's a trusted communication channel between organizations. It carries links and attachments, and it's easily impersonated. As such, it's a cheap, simple, and highly effective tool for bad actors who want to gain control over organizations' IT assets, access, and steal confidential information or disrupt business operations. You know, historically speaking, email security has been provided by a secure email gateway, a classic email perimeter strategy to keep bad emails from making their way to the corporate inboxes. Changes, however, in the threat landscape require that the strategy must now extend beyond this traditional perimeter-oriented defense to one that is multi-zoned and integrated with the company's overall security system. Mimecast's Email Security 3.0 strategy helps IT and security professionals achieve a new and more comprehensive form of protection against email attacks by advancing the perimeter email security to a comprehensive, more pervasive discipline. Our approach addresses threats in 3 distinct zones, which I'll be covering throughout this discussion. And that's primarily your email perimeter, what's taking place inside of your network, which has been a historical blind spot for a lot of organizations, specifically around the email side of things. And then what can we do even further at this point in time to extend beyond the perimeter and really address a lot of the concerns that we have for external threats that we might not necessarily see or even have visibility of at present. Our cloud-based platform is comprised of integrated service components like data processing, scanning and detection, machine learning, data storage, and fundamentally policy enforcement linked to a framework you have built internally within your organization. We've wrapped our platform with our API connectors, and this is ready to help integrate further and throughout your ICT environment, specifically within the security segment. Mimecast, as an organization, and as Mr. Anafati would have mentioned, is continually trying to be better and incrementally build up capabilities and integrate them back into our security infrastructure to ensure that with other security investments, we defend your organization against email-borne attacks, fraudulent brand activity, and compliance challenges. We are essentially committed to continuously making things easier and more cost-effective. And at present, that model is proving valuable as we currently service over 36,000 customers around the world. As mentioned, I myself currently manage our SMB segment for the Middle East and African region. And there alone, we are seeing 7,000 customers who make use of our services every single day to ensure that they and their organizations are entirely protected. The first thing I'd like to really get into with you guys is really the role of disruption within an organization. Now, we've identified 3 key points or key areas that really speak to most organizations. And, you know, we are currently living in a day and age where technology has permeated every nook and cranny of both our business and professional lives, as well as our personal lives, and the overlaps that that creates can have significant impact back into the organizations. While technology can create a lot of efficiencies and opportunities, it also increases risk. In fact, technology is snap dab at the middle of today's very real business disruption triangle as visualized here. And we've kind of isolated down to 3 primary areas of concern. The initial area being dependency. You know, the majority of business operations are now dependent on digital technology and systems. When one goes down, it can result in a loss of productivity and revenue, not necessarily in a single area, but across business itself. The next area where we really like to invest is the interdependency. Because whilst most IT organizations and internal IT teams have a very tight focus on their business, what we sometimes fail to remember is each organization has invested to connect its internal systems. But in order to streamline business processes, transactions, and efficiencies, organizations also now connect to each other. One organization's exploited weakness can quickly have a dire consequence and run straight through the supply chain, not only to vendors servicing your organization, but just as critically to external parties or customers, which can tarnish things like brand reputation, as well as reliability and the image of your organization, which has much longer lasting effects when it comes to the impact it can do to an organization. Gone are the days where it's simply correct and carry on as business as usual. Now we have to look long-term and align to the long-term vision of your organization to ensure that not only are we protecting today, but we're protecting your brand for the future. Finally, the third disruptor that is genuinely beyond our control is regulation. I mean, we are seeing huge movements at the moment, especially focused on data privacy, data holding, and data management. You know, the largest being GDPR, which would be most pertinent to European subscribers. And not only that, Nigeria itself has implemented the Nigeria Data Protection Regulation, which tends to align with GDPR. But as digital transformation progresses, so does the number of types of sophisticated threats. Much cybersecurity regulation is intended to secure data. Being cited for failing to comply with certain regulations can throw an organization into disarray. Now, the first area that we tend to focus on and see as absolutely critical, especially in present day, is the aspect of human error. So human error can take many forms, but I mean, as you would have heard previously from the previous speaker, we have phenomenal tool sets in place as it stands today. Quite a few of the malicious actors are shut down as we specified at the perimeter, but internally in your organization, you cannot disregard the margin of error that people bring into it. To be quite frank with you, at Mimecast, we like to say that each and every one of your staff members needs to invest in the security of the organization. It is not just an IT role. And they have to start operating too, in terms of being almost minor firewalls in your internal environment who are aware and are prepared to face the challenges and the sophisticated attacks that we see moving through the market at present. That brings us to our second kind of aspect that really impacts this, and that is malicious acts. So there we're discussing really malicious actors, threat actors we see within the industry. And what a lot of people tend to fail to realize is these are not individuals working in isolation to, you know, in historical context, a lot of it was people just trying to see what they could do. Now they are running just as businesses. They have structure, they have security operations. We have actually seen instances of certain threat actors running ticketing information as they sell on their malicious payloads on various platforms to enable your less sophisticated teams to still exploit internal environments as well as loopholes easily discovered within most IT organizations, specifically in the SMB. And then our final look is really technology failure. You know, historically speaking, and this is primarily one of the reasons I'm such a large advocate of software as a service or infrastructure as a service, is it was really reliant on physical infrastructure that you as an organization would have in place. End user devices, endpoint protection, you have your firewalling environment, and normally that would be set up in an active passive state for physical failover. But the inevitable fact is technology does fail. And what have we planned and what have we put into the strategy to really ensure that should there be a technological failure, we have redundancy in place and a comprehensive continuity strategy to ensure that we meet the demands of modern day IT. You know, the reality being, with the migration to more cloud-based infrastructure, we negate a lot of that risk. But as we are utilizing shared platforms, we are now exposed to a different sort of risk, which is really access to data, control of access to applications, whether they be web-based, whether they be localized on device, and how they connect. But technology failure is critically important to plan around, as a single day for most organizations without their technological capability leads to direct financial impact. At present, and these are some minor stats just so you have visibility, 35% of security breaches that we experience on a day-to-day platform, and these are verifiable facts, come from human error within an environment. 94% of malware delivery leverages mail, and to a large extent, the other 6% that we see is really focused on the web security aspect and exploitation of web-based applications. In our experience, as well as feedback from multiple sources such as your Forrester environments, etc., Trust Radius, 93% of these incidents are entirely preventable if you take the steps as outlaid by Mr. Anafade, and that can be implemented with tool sets such as that provided by Mimecast specifically to ensure that this does not happen. As an approach, we have adopted email security 3.0, and what it really translates to you as the customer is really a multi-layered approach, especially focused towards that mid-market segment, enterprise segment, and SMB, of how do we layer the security to have a comprehensive strategy in place that does not exceed a cost overhead that simply isn't attainable by most organizations trading today. We started Mimecast as an organization really focused on your perimeter. And what does that mean to you? As with most other vendors in this space, our inception or our launch came with the product offering of a secure email gateway. You know, this includes and is still included in our packages and covers your basic kind of protection layer. And this would be spam protection, antivirus, anti-spam, your basic DLP and content examination rule set, as well as a continuity platform. So how do we keep working, whether we have a break in technology, as you saw previously in that slide, to ensure that we are always servicing our customers and the organization is always in a position to assist. As the security landscape evolved, that simplified secure email gateway genuinely was not enough and isn't enough anymore to ensure that you are covering all of your threats. As a byproduct of that, we then enabled our targeted threat protection services, which focus in three key areas where we see the largest payload or the largest attack vector to provide that additional layered security. The first being attachment protection itself. So how do we get a more granular look at the attachments coming into the organization? You know, traditional sandbox methodology, it comes in, you explode it, you actually see those consequences in a controlled environment. However, this can cause delays. And as an example, if you are a larger organization receiving financial queries, as an example, like would be the case with Investment one, you simply do not have the time and technical resources to explode this technology, really evaluate it, and then allow release onto user. So we innovated in that space and took our sandbox to a level where what we're doing is no longer detonating the threat unnecessarily. We are scanning down to a code layer within the attachment to look for macros, to look for deviations that may impact your environment and your services. Further to that, URL protection. You know, as I mentioned previously, a lot of the inbound threats come in via mail, but the next evolution we saw was bypassing loading the attachments and simply providing a URL that people would hit. It would take them to a service such as a WeTransfer or a Dropbox with an automated download that detonates the payload the second you have pulled it into your browser and onto your localized machine. URL protection utilizes a full proxy-based service which scans not only the URL as it passes through our gateway environment, but further to that, when the user themselves click that link, they are then redirected, should it be necessary, via a proxied environment. We scan in real time to ensure that it's not a time-based type of setup, which we may have missed in our previous scan. And again, we ensure that additional layer of protection by blocking, but not only blocking, educating your end users as to why it was a harmful link and what they need to look out for moving forward to ensure that they do not fall for this kind of threat yet again. The final one that we implemented was, and possibly the highest attack vector we've seen recently, impersonation protection. Utilization of your brand, utilization of subdomains, specifically for externally published or internally focused executive layer. Impersonation Protect goes the extra mile, checking the headers, checking the footers, checking the construct, checking the domain to ensure that it is indeed registered to your organization or the sending organization, to prevent spoofing, to prevent people from slipping through utilizing social engineering as an example. And where we have seen this really blossom, ironically enough, is not necessarily in your end users, but at your CEO and exco layer. You know, unfortunately, at that executive layer, a single instance of impersonation could authorize a payment that could cause severe impact to your environment. It could force an employee who is perhaps not paying the right level of attention to the mail coming in with an idea to provide internal customer lists, HR listings, payroll information, and a multitude of others. And that's where we really stepped things up and took it to the next level and locked down that perimeter defense with our targeted threat protection. With that component package, we also included data loss prevention and content examination. Now, this is really on your outbound mail routing side of things to ensure that all of those previously listed items I mentioned, such as your payroll information, etc., can be scanned and picked up. And before it even leaves your organization and creates the kind of impact we have seen in market, you're alerted to it, it has been remediated, and it has been pulled out of that end user's mailbox to ensure that we do not see continuous use or spread. Now, traditionally speaking, and to be quite fair, up until around 2014, 2015, 2016, this would be the extent of really how far you would take your email security outside of implementations on the actual Exchange server itself. But what we realized, you know, as the malicious actors developed and as they found new ways into the organization, specifically utilizing social engineering as an aspect of that, simply safeguarding the perimeter was not enough. And we needed to provide additional value back to our customers to mobilize them. And that really made us start to look at inside your network and organization. Here we're talking specifically the movement of east-west traffic on your mail platform. A lot of the time we have seen attacks take place internally within the organization, with visibility only being seen as long as 225 days later, because we are simply not tracking to a large extent our internal mail flow and traffic. Our answer to that was the deployment of a new service, internal email protection. And what it really does is it overlays not only the data leak prevention into your internal environment, which allows you to stop the movement of comprehensive or sensitive material moving throughout your organization. As an example, why would finance be sending credit card information to someone in your facility's environment? That shouldn't take place. There's no need. There's no reason it should happen. So why is it happening? This allows you to see exactly when it takes place, who is doing the distribution, as well as an auto remediation function, which allows you to stop that east-west movement immediately without manual intervention, whilst at the same time notifying your administrators and key stakeholders of exactly what is taking place and what is moving around the organization. Further to that, we have also overlaid all the additional security provided by targeted threat protection to your internal environment, which means whether it's someone who has taken a link that they received via WhatsApp web and are now sending it to all of their colleagues, whether it's an attachment that someone brought in on a flash drive and is sharing, unknowingly having a malicious payload on board. As this hits your mail environment, we will again trap it, stop it, auto-remediate out of it, which becomes critical to SMBs who simply cannot afford the staff footprint required to do these things manually, as well as alert you to any possible damage or implication. This will also be overlaid to your external environment to ensure that we are not only protecting your internal, but making sure that your supply chain, yet again, and your customers aren't affected. Now, from a systems perspective, we found this highly effective, but it doesn't solve the underlying problem, which brought about our next advent, which is security awareness training functionality. You know, we can auto remediate as much as we want, we can try and stop it, but there's no such thing as a comprehensive strategy. And solving that underlying issue of end user education became fundamentally critical for our continued success, as well as that of our customers. We have designed a platform that's very intuitive, very lightweight, and very short and engaging to your end staff. And on the back of that, the reporting it provides is exceptional. We tend to take a risk-focused methodology, as mentioned by Mr. Onifado, and this means granular reporting down to a user level as to what is the level of confidence that we have in these staff members, who are the culprits, the repeat offenders, because as we know, it tends to be a lot of the same people who make a lot of the same mistakes. And unfortunately, it costs a lot in terms of resource to run workshops cross-departmentally versus having visibility of where the problems lie from a user perspective upfront and ensuring that we can address it directly either with that end user or with their manager to ensure that the behavior is corrected immediately. And not only that, what we like to track is the long-term view. Where are the improvements? Are we seeing a decrease and recording in terms of mapping that back to our systems to ensure that we are actually getting value out of the platform? You know, we do not believe in a spray approach. We believe in a targeted strategic approach to upskilling, as well as ensuring prevention of risk to the organization by putting the right policies in place to stop it based on that end user interaction. Quarantine and remediation. Another handy functionality of our IEP platform is once we have held that mail and it is submitted up to our MSOC environment, We will also provide you with the detail necessary to have a real understanding in your environment of what is it, where is it coming from, and what is the possible business impact. Now, whilst this sounds very comprehensive, again, we were forced to evolve and get better. And this is when we really started looking beyond your perimeter. Brand reputation. What does it mean? What's happening beyond your organization that you are not tracking on an ongoing basis that could cause damage to the business either in present day or long term? One of the things we included is global threat intelligence. This is actually a free service that comes with our IEP as well as our targeted threat protection service. And what it does is it gives you full visibility in real time of not only your risk and the threat actors impacting your environment, but also external risks aligned to region, aligned to industry silo, so that you can not only plan for today, but plan the future based on what you are really seeing externally outside of your organization, taking us from a stance of reactivity and really emphasizing proactivity. The next thing that we really needed to find an answer for was proactive risk hunting. How do we utilize the tool set that we have at present to ensure that we are seeing what is happening? As an example, man-in-the-middle attacks. How do we know that our mail has been harvested in transition? How do we catalog and get that feedback back to you as the IT admin so that you can notify your supply chain or notify any of the external parties you may be dealing with that there has been an incident? And the answer to that was really the acquisition and building into our stack of DMARC Analyzer. As I'm sure a lot of you are aware, we have implemented SPF. This has become basic standard practice globally. We have DMARC. DMARC is the next evolution to kind of your SPF records. And that's cataloging those man-in-the-middle attacks, externally speaking and reporting back to you. Our DMARC analyzers will analyze your external footprint. Where is it going? What to do with that reporting? Because historically speaking, I mean, today, you can set up DMARC records in your DNS environment. But when it comes back, you're looking at a big old bulk dump, and it's not really good actionable intelligence. This platform DMARC Analyzer removes that noise entirely, deduplicates, and gives you something digestible that you can actually plan and utilize and prevent future incidents. And finally, when we speak beyond your perimeter, is really brand and domain protection. So we recently acquired an operation. It was actually out of Israel. As you guys know, it's really a cybersecurity hub at this point in time. And their sole focus is to offer a managed service around brand and domain protection. Now, this means spoofed websites, takedown actions, proactive risk hunting, yet again, to be searching constantly. And we have taken down what would be a page takedown. The general timeline there, on average, is roughly 40 days to turn around. We have minimized that window with our brand or BEP, brand protection, to a matter of hours, and I mean hours. It is a fully managed service. It requires zero intervention from you or your team, and we will find people trying to impersonate your infrastructure, your brand, and your website footprint, and immediately shut it down on your behalf with a full report on the back end to specify who it was, how it happened, and what we did to resolve the issue on your behalf. So I think what I've tried to do in a very short period of time, without being too specific, is give you an overview of what layered security can really look like. It's not simply your responsibility to guard the perimeter anymore. We have to look externally, internally, and ensure that we have an integrated perimeter defense to really maximize your return on investment. And that, and my final message and final word to you is really think beyond. Move from perimeter email security to pervasive email security. And that's really an extension of having real control over everything moving through that environment. That pretty much concludes my chat. So just thank you very much for bearing with me, guys. I know it's quite a long session. And thank you for the opportunity for letting me share what Mimecast can do for you and your organization today.
Thank you very much, Kylie, for this presentation. It was quite informative. We learned a lot and looked at it layered, 3-layered levels of information of the email security 3.0 that Mimecast has to offer. And we are really grateful for that information. And then, just website takedown, that's one of the issues that come up quite a lot, especially in the Nigerian scene. And we'll have so many other questions to ask you on that and many other things as well. So let's welcome you to the Q&A session as we join also Opeyemi, who is here as well. The first question that I would have to ask, which is the same thing that many people in the audience will be thinking about, said it quite a lot of things. And this question is to Opeyemi. What are the top 5 risks, cybersecurity risks that businesses are exposed to? So we've heard so many things, but what are the top 5 things that we should, businesses should work on? Sorry, Opeyemi, we can't really hear you. No, we can't really hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, now we can hear you. So my question again was the top 5 cybersecurity risks that businesses are exposed to, in your opinion.
Okay. All right, so thank you very much, Kyle, for the presentation. I would like to say security risks that are targeting the ignorance of staff, especially talking about SMEs, that's the majority of the participants are from SMEs. Looking at stuff like phishing attacks, malware and ransomware attacks, man-in-the-middle attacks, denial of service attacks, and some insider threats, like people who maybe accidentally or intentionally sabotaging the system. Okay, so some of the things I've mentioned in my presentation, around cyber hygiene, absence of them would be considered the topmost issues that organizations have to address. So I don't want to go through my presentation again, but if you actually follow the cyber hygiene, then you will be healthy, cybersecurity wise.
Yeah, I'm reading somewhere that the top 10 vulnerabilities account for more than half of the issues, cybersecurity issues today. So if you just focus on the really, really generic, the ones that are quite common, and use the necessary cyber hygiene, like you've mentioned, security, email, phishing, and all that, they could get themselves protected. And that helps us to focus really on 3 areas. I just want to ask questions on those 3 areas. And this is my question to Kylie. How is, just focusing on the human behavior and human error as just one area, how is human behavior and error a cybersecurity risk? Many people probably don't seem to understand that much around that area, please.
Taliwa, I think you're spot on, and I would actually flag that as the largest security risk at present in most organizations. The social engineering aspect can be multi-layered, which I think Mr. Onaferi will back me up on. This is not simply limited to phishing mails coming in. As a great example, coming up is Black Friday. That's where we see huge volumes. in terms of ransomware attacks under payloads linked to what could be perceived as catalogs and specials, people allowing that information and giving their personal information across. And what people need to realize is a threat actor does not need to get all of your information in one place. They tend to be very sophisticated, and it's a process of, yes, Mr. Customer, please just give me your email address and your telephone number. Then they will try a different attack vector to get further information. So they will then phone with the information you have provided to perhaps your finance department and get further details to simply say, we are vetting the credentials of this person, providing back the right information. You know, the social engineering aspect even gets to the point of physical layered security. So who are you letting into your environment? Is reception checking to ensure that that person is there to maintain the air conditioning unit? Or is he putting down a wireless device that could interface with your networking environment? And that's where, you know, we've tried to focus on your awareness training in multiple areas. So it's from physical exposure, like passwords being left on a desk or written down, to am I joining a wireless network in a coffee shop and utilizing a VPN service to prevent it? Because people tend to be the problem in most situations today within cybersecurity. You know, the technology set itself has advanced dramatically, and it will do, as said, when packaged and configured correctly. But what we can never really account for is the variable linked to human behavior. And what people seem to fail to realize is it's not just impact to the business, it's impact to themselves. And we find that that's the easiest way to highlight the risk to them is, what is your personal impact? If your credit card details get stolen, if someone gets into your localized network and exposes your children to something they should not be seeing, what is the personal ramification and knock-on? And then we expand that vision into the knock-on to the greater organization and the impact there. But, you know, for me, it really is the critical area is educating end users and simply making them aware, because they're not deliberately trying to make mistakes. It's human nature. They can't know everything. And it's our job as an IT department or a security organization to really provide them with that education.
That's true. So social engineering and the education of our human resources is really, really key. But then also, what about emails? You know, humans also receive the emails. Is there, and you did mention in your presentation about phishing and spear phishing, and then we have all of this. And this is one of the risks that is really high in Nigeria: business email compromise or CEO fraud. And you mentioned impersonation. So what are the other tools that we could you know, utilize to manage or mitigate the impact of this human error as a result of human behavior?
Yes, Taliwe, I mean, I can definitely expand in that area. I mean, impersonation protection, which is one of the services we offer, really focuses on that specifically. So we take a multi-layered approach, especially to the mails coming in. We check both the header and the envelope component. We check the content body. We check the attachment as well as the content of the attachment itself. And our methodology really relies on hits. How many in a checklist of safety checks, and we're very thorough on this, although it is flexible, dependent on the organization, to see, are we progressively seeing issues with this mail? If so, has it flagged more than 2 alerts? At which point we take it into an immediate hold and flag your administrator so that they can get visual eyes on it and perhaps explode any kind of attachment that may be necessary. You know, what we have started utilizing is what we term within that a subset policy called a VIP policy. It is a lot more stringent, and it is generally designed for that senior layer within an organization, like your C layer, your middle management tree, and upwards. And there's a lot more control around that particular area, and we can segregate from the general populace. So the first thing we really want to do is identify the variants. And then the second thing we want to concentrate on is, now that we've identified it, how do we remove it from the environment? And our tool set specifically is designed to not only sweep your external or as it comes in, but again, your internal environment to ensure that this is not being moved across your environment. You know, for SMEs specifically, your staff is limited. You do not necessarily have an email specialist. We tend to see a lot of generalists in this environment. So what we like to do with our tool set is really be that specialist on your behalf. And that's really where the auto remediation comes in. And that's without any intervention whatsoever. We will remediate that not only from your end user's environment, but all the way to the extent of the desktop itself to really pull away any sort of malicious payload that we've identified or impersonation and ensure it doesn't propagate throughout your cloud infrastructure, which is obviously a very large risk too, which I think Mr. Anafeli will back me up on. Cloud isn't the answer. It has its own set of issues, and we need to cater to both that and on-site infrastructure.
Thank you so much for your answer. So we should look at getting tools that will stop phishing, and anyone that goes through it can also remediate and extract, as well as provide awareness to our entire staff, because they are the last line of the defense, and as well as the weakness, but they are also the last line of defense. Thank you so much for that answer. So then another tool we find so much that SMEs use, laptops, tablets, phones, removable media, and these are some risks, really. They have risks. So my question to Mr. Onifade is, what processes can small and medium enterprise businesses put in place to protect themselves from the risk that this endpoint devices that they brings to their organization? Okoyemi, I don't know if you got my question.
Can you hear me? I got your question, but can you hear me?
Okay, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. So I know that for most small and medium scale enterprise, affording the tools could be very challenging because of the cost implication. Like I mentioned in my presentation, it's always important to weigh the cost against the benefits so that you can take a risk-based decision. Okay, so there are a number of approaches that I think small and medium scale enterprises should focus on. I think that the first thing they need to focus on is their processes, because even if you have the resources to buy tools and your processes are wrong, you may end up automating a wrong process, which will now eventually just make your problem more efficient in disturbing you. So the right processes need to be in place, and I think you need to start with policies. Policies help to set direction, what is acceptable behavior and what is not acceptable behavior. And then you assess your risk. Now we can now begin to talk about, okay, which risk can we control with procedures? Because controls could be technical in nature, they could be operational or administrative in nature, or managerial in nature, and of course, physical sometimes. So we may need to look at those risks first, and I'm talking as a businessman that doesn't just want to throw money at every problem. You want to see if you can be creative in addressing them first, and then look for free solutions first, and then move towards probably solutions that you have to pay for. That's, for example, as a small medium enterprise organization, the first thing you want to do is to ensure that personal firewall on your devices are activated. That doesn't cost you anything. To ensure that, okay, for every device, you have personal firewall activated. Another thing is to ensure that your software, your operating systems are patched. You have the latest release of the operating system. For your applications, your office suites, you have the latest release. And then security awareness all the time. Because if people don't know what is going on, if they're ignorant, social engineering, phishing attacks, it doesn't matter how much you have invested. If you don't invest in your people, it becomes a problem. Good practices are as good as those who practice them. Okay, so for SMEs, because I don't want to mention tools and plans and all of that, but there are definitely tools that can help you with maybe configuring your network. There are free VPN tools for virtual private networks and all of that. So awareness of those tools and then proper application of them in the proper context is very key.
That's really true. Then we also have this major risk that affects everyone and definitely SMEs with ransomware, and that is really related to the endpoint and the data that is stored on endpoint. I know you've mentioned a few things like patching that could protect you from a ransomware attack, but what more could you do? Say, for example, you are hit by a ransomware attack. What can you do that would help you to recover and quickly? Because we're also talking about resilience in the business operations.
Yeah, prevention is always cheaper and better than cure. For a ransomware attack, if you don't have backup systems, if your backup plan is weak, if your business continuity and disaster recovery procedures are not in place, if you don't test and exercise your backups, then it's almost too late, to apply medicine after death. So you have ransomware attacks, the encryption keys you don't have access to, and even if you have the technical expertise, the resources you have to invest or spend to be able to recover, sometimes people just give up. They don't have an alternative. So it is always important, to prevent problems. Good leaders don't just solve problems, they prevent problems. And that is the culture that you want to cultivate. So cybersecurity is also about culture and behavior of the people. So what kind of culture, organizational culture do you have around risk? Are you proactive or reactive? Because if you are proactive, then you patch your systems. You won't wait for the problem to start before you begin to solve it. You prevent problems before they happen. So, but if you are already in the problem, so maybe you just learn from you have lessons learned to say, what did we do wrong? And how do we prevent a recurrence? But sometimes it's very difficult if you have a ransomware attack, unless you have some deep pockets to be able to recover quickly.
That's true. So patching, continuity strategies, the
vulnerability management, general vulnerability management,
Those are strategies that businesses can use and do use to protect against ransomware attack. So there's yet another risk that small businesses are, very peculiar to small businesses because they depend a lot on vendors and third party. And third party risk is one black hole, so to say. You really don't have so much visibility to third party risk. And yet when they do happen, it could be really, really disastrous. I mean, as much as you've done everything on your side, then you have a vulnerability on the vendor side that, makes mockery of what you've done. Yeah. So what processes can small businesses put in place because they rely a lot on vendors and so that they are protected from third party risks?
Okay, so, okay, thank you. It's important that organizations understand who they are dealing with. So risk assessment, again, it's important that you have a third-party risk assessment procedure in your organization. You need to do a background check for your third parties, the vendors, who are they? Because sometimes you trust consultants, contractors, vendors, even more than you trust your own staff, because just assume that, okay, they are here in our best interest. But if you look at a number of cybersecurity incidents globally, it has to do with a contractor compromising. Even at the Department of Defense in the US, we've had situations whereby it has to do with a contractor violating the security policies of the organization. So it's important that the same level of security policies that you have set for yourself is imposed on third parties. They need to be able to subscribe to your own security policy. There are basic procedures like non-disclosure agreements. You recall when I was engaged, you insisted that I sign a non-disclosure agreement. Otherwise, you won't let me have access to anything in your organization. when people are visitors, you want to ensure that they are escorted or properly identified. Even for staff, they need to have their badges, their ID card, visible, in such a way that it's displayed. You can know who's not a member of staff and all of that. So the security awareness also, I know you did that in investment one. I know there was a situation where you had to call all your vendors, the cleaners, the security guys, and you actually have a calendar of security awareness program for them on behalf of their organization. So because at the end of the day, you are still accountable for the information assets. You can't say you have outsourced this and outsourced that. So the same policies and procedures that you impose on full-time employees should be imposed or extended to contract staff or temporary employees who have access to your information assets. So basically, under a checklist, if you look, I mentioned the ISO 27001 controls. There are some guidance on what you need to look out for. Contractual clauses that you need to put in place, like rights to audit. You should be able to audit your third parties to be sure that they are doing what they ought to do. Okay, so that you can further foster the trust that should be between you and your third-party service providers.
Thank you very, very much for that response. And my final question actually goes to Kylie, and I'll be dragging some information that I found on SOFO's 2020 report. And it's really peculiar to small businesses because because they do not have access to large amount of working capital. Most of them cannot purchase and own their own private cloud. So they will go to the cloud and to public cloud like Amazon, Azure. And this report, actually, the SOFO's reports with respect to Nigeria, mentioned that 86% of the respondents of that survey, which the report came out of, said that they were hit in 2020 and 2019 by public cloud security incidents. Most of these were as a result of poor, and Kylie had mentioned it earlier, poor or misconfiguration of their cloud assets and then stolen credentials. Is there anything we can do as businesses? Because we have to go to the cloud and we are driving innovation and digitalization. Is there anything we can do to protect ourselves from the risks that come as a result of using cloud assets?
Thanks, Taliwa. And I think you're spot on. For SMEs, SaaS models, cloud type models, or infrastructure as a service models are extremely appealing because of exactly what you stipulated. Low CapEx expenditure, low management fees in terms of maintenance. Mr. Onafedi referenced patching, which has always been critical. That kind of overhead falls away in the cloud. But what people need to remember is, unless it is specifically a managed service offering, you are still liable, and configuration and planning is critical. I'd also like to reinforce and just echo what Mr. Onafede was saying. Planning is everything. It's absolutely crucial to the role. Understanding your policies, understanding your DR strategy is fundamental to making any cloud strategy work. And I think the primary key driver or key talking point that I try to discuss with most SMEs when having consultation is multi-vendor strategies. I mean, I think you mentioned two of the biggest vendors there, AWS and Azure. What we tend to find, especially on the Microsoft side of things, is because they offer multiple service offerings in a single kind of bundle, which is fantastic. We work in partnership with Microsoft in terms of a layered approach, but single credential harvesting can then allow lateral movement across your entire environment. And over and above that, they also then back up to Azure as a platform, which means not only is your cloud or your primary cloud infrastructure corrupt, the second you spool up your backups, that is then hit too. So my primary thing that I like to vocalize is multi-vendor, multi-layer. If you have primary services with an Azure as an example, look at AWS to facilitate your backup of that environment. Perhaps look at a smaller localized cloud vendor who still has the right ISO 27001, etc. certifications, and look at housing a distributed backup scenario. But you know, the key there too is if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Plan your strategy. You know, one of the things we roll out as standard with our continuity services for mail is a business continuity planning manual. You know, outlaying step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And while it might not align perfectly to the individual organization, it provides them with that starting point to say, you need to be aware of these things. In a worst case scenario, this is your first step. These are the stakeholders to notify, and this is the remediation plan. Because as Mr. Onifedi said, especially with incidents like ransomware with high encryption, once it's taken place, you know, once the genie's out of the bottle, it's very hard to put it back in. So plan properly, prevent, get the right tool set that matches your requirements. And that's something us at Mimecast are very focused on. It's not a question of getting everything. It's getting the right things in the right places. And you will identify that through the right process mapping and planning of your cloud migration. So I know that's a bit of a long-winded answer, but cloud is not simple. It is every application conceivable, every piece of data conceivable, but it's a starting point that most people need. And that's really put together a plan. Don't rush it to save money. Rather, spend the additional money, extend your current period, and plan correctly so you have a seamless migration.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to take two things: plan well, plan all your strategies, and use a multi-layered approach and multi-vendor as well, so that you have backup and business continuities. And that would wrap up our Q&A session. And I'd like to say thank you very much to Kylie, as well as to Mr. Opeyemi Onifade for this, and so many things we've been able to go through. We've gone through human behavior and errors, endpoint, third-party risk, as well as cloud assets, and we have so much we can take as things that we're going to be applying in our day-to-day activities. So allow me, everyone, so I could take a few comments from Investment One as they are our sponsor, and to talk a little about their products just for a few minutes, and we can take on as next step. So I will be introducing two very awesome ladies, Omoni David Mosaku, who is the team lead for digital banking, Investment One, as well as Chinwe Iwobi, who is the team lead for institutional banking, private banking division. And I welcome these two fantastic ladies to this panel. Hello, Omoni.
Hello, Tlewa. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for
No worries. It seems we have lost Chinwe to network connectivity issues, and that's just only you here. So I'll just ask a few questions, and I'm sure you could just run us through what Investment One has. So as we're trying to reach out to our customers to assure them that we've got their back, especially in this this period, as well as prospective customers. I mean, we did have a run through of what Investment One offers. It was a mouthful at the beginning, but what exactly are the products that Investment One can offer to anyone out there?
Hello, thank you, Tilewa. So for Investment One, I am just guessing. I know you have been introduced Investment One and what we do, more like the overview of what we do. But basically at Investment One, we offer different services, financial services. We have the mutual funds, we offer private banking, as well as also we offer trust, we offer pensions, and then also finance out, amongst many others. For talking about individuals, what can individuals actually sign up on or with Investment One financial services? So I'll just talk briefly on the mutual funds, and then I'll go to the channels that are available, how people can access these products. So I'll talk about the mutual funds. we have different mutual funds. I'm sure a lot of us must have heard what or understand what mutual fund is. So basically, when you talk about mutual fund is more like a product and investment where different investors will come together, put their collective funds together, and by virtue of investing in products that naturally they would not be able to access by virtue of the amounts as well as also the expertise. So we have different mutual funds. We have the money market fund. It's called the Abacus Money Market Fund. So this is available to everyone because the minimum is about 1,000 naira, and which is very fantastic. And then you earn dividends on a quarterly basis. Also, we have another product called the Vantage Guaranteed Income Fund. The Vantage Guaranteed Income Fund is basically more like a mix of your money market fund and bonds and the like. So it kind of guarantees a minimum return, and currently the minimum guaranteed return is 7.5% per annum. And also we have the Vantage Balance Fund as well as the Vantage Equity Income Fund. This is basically for those who would like to invest in the equities markets, and maybe because of the expertise, not having the knowledge about what happens in the in the stock market, and not being able to just take a decision, a quick decision. So the Vantage Balance Fund and the Vantage Equity Income Fund helps people to acquire stocks and also enjoy the benefits of this Nigerian stock market. So as well, we have the Vantage Dollar Fund. The Vantage Dollar Fund is basically for those who would like to invest, who have dollar obligations and would like to invest their dollars in a mutual fund. And this is basically you can invest in Vantage Dollar Fund with Investment One. And then we have other products. I guess maybe I can talk on behalf of Chinwe,
Yes.
since she's not available here. We have for the high-end investment, we have fixed income. So you can decide to place an amount of fund for a particular period. You can start from 30 days to 90 days and down to 1 year. We also have some dollar euro bonds as well that you can as well invest in, and then some dollar fixed deposit funds as well. Then we have other products structured for real estate as well as also a long-term investment yield. That's basically some of the products. Then as well, we have I talked about the finance house. We also have the finance house also give access to loan. So if you need business loan, need to pay for school fees, we are quite open to that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Then the channels, how can we get access to these products? Because you said so many things. I'm sure people probably didn't catch everything you said, but if there's somewhere they could go to and they could find this access to this product, information about the product, how much they need to be able to invest in, what is the yield, and all that details, and as well as sign on to the products.
Okay, at Investment One, we have a lot of channels that can cater to so many of your needs. So we talk about you being able to access investment. So we have the Zing mobile and the web application. The Zing is like it's like a savings and an investment application just to take away your financial hassles. So you can sign up on Zing and you'll be able to access savings products ranging from 4% to 10% per annum, and that is quite fantastic. Bearing in mind the current interest rate in the market. Then we have you can also access mutual funds on Zing as well, so you can invest in all the mutual funds that have been mentioned on Zing platform. Then as well, you can also fix some funds on the Zing platform itself. So to access the Zing, it's available on the mobile app, your iOS and your Android devices, as well as also you can visit the website www.zingit.com. So we also have other channel called the easyinvest.ng.com. The Easy Invest is basically for everyone's institutional, individual. You can access your mutual funds, you can access stocks. Yes, I actually forgot to mention, you can also access stock on the Zing platform. So you can decide to buy your stocks, individual stocks, more like buy stocks for yourself, not just investing in the mutual fund. So that's for Zing, and also on Easy Trade as well. You can also open a stock account. You can create a stock account as well as also you can invest. You can buy and sell your stocks on the Easy Invest platform. Same with the other products I've mentioned. You can also invest in mutual fund. You can monitor your funds. You can view your statements. You can also make a request for withdrawal and the likes. That's basically for Easy Invest. And then we also have the USSD channel. This is basically for those who are probably limited by data or internet. So we have a USSD that can also cater to some of your investment needs. It's star 5678 hash. So with star 5678 hash, you can actually access investments. You can open an account. You can also make payments as well as also make withdrawals. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all of that. And we know people will be interested and they will be able to get all that information. I know we have a website, investment1.com, and you can get all that information also on the website, and you can reach through on Investment One products, either for the retail or the corporate end. Thank you so much, Omoni, for coming on to this webinar and giving us a rundown on Investment One's products. Really appreciate. And just to conclude, really, Investment One is very supportive of information security, and that's what we can see. Having this webinar, hosting this, one of the reasons why we're having this median edition of the webinar, to the caliber of people that we've had to bring into our webinar and the amount of information they've been able to give to all of us. It's because we take our information seriously. We take the protection of not only our information and our customers' information very, very seriously. And that's why I'd like to just take a few minutes, last minutes, to discuss something that we've noticed that is quite prevalent in this past few weeks and months, where we have individuals that would pretend, attempts by fraudsters to would disguise themselves as Investment One, either on WhatsApp or on the Instagram, Facebook, and they could even take people's pictures. They could take Omoni's picture, for example, and put it on Instagram or on Facebook and pose as her, just to get people, unsuspecting Nigerians, to invest in something that it's not a product offered by Investment One. And we've seen this happen. The proliferation of this is quite high, and it's happening in all the finance houses. And Investment One is using this as an opportunity to let our audience know, our customers and our prospective customers, that we have just notified, we have our channels for reaching out to you. We have the Zing app, and I'll share in just a few minutes this the slide that shows how we engage our customers. We have all of these things in which we engage our customers, and we do not in any way engage people outside of this. So I'm sharing this this slide that tells you how you can contact us. So you can see this is how we reach out to you. We have our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and phone numbers. So we do not, we are not fraudsters. We do not tell you that if you bring 1,000 Naira, you will get 1 million Naira in 3 months. No, we're regulated by SEC, and then we all have our investment rates out there, and we would not reach out to you on anything that would be outside the way in which we typically would speak to you. So that's why we're using this also as an avenue to let you know, as our customers and prospective customers, that we take your security very, very, very seriously. And in order to do that, we also send information out to, like what we've done using this webinar, as well as in social media and emails. We send scam alerts to let our customers know, and we have to let the whole Nigeria, unsuspecting Nigerians know that, please do not fall prey to these fraudsters. We would not reach out to you to promise you that you're going to get 1 million Naira in 3 months, not in this economy or in any other one. So that is it for today. I know we have a few other questions, but we would try to answer these questions and let you over your mail. So we'll be able to let you know the information over the mail and answer any other questions that you have. We're happy to let you know that this entire webinar has been recorded, and it's going to be posted on our YouTube page. So you can also go back there and read and watch through and reach out to any of any of our contacts. Once again, we've shown you the contacts. You can reach out to us and answer any questions that you have on our product, on information security, And finally, I would like to add that this month is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And we, everywhere in the world, we're trying to raise awareness on cybersecurity issues. So please let us all do our part and let's be cyber smart as we try to protect ourselves, our loved ones, and our organization. Thank you very much to all my participants, all the panelists, Omoniyi. Thank you so much to Kylie, as well as Opeyemi, and do have a lovely, lovely day and a good weekend ahead. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Taliwa. All right.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Taliwa, for putting this together. Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, Kai. Yeah, bye.
Thanks so much, guys.